Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to a new EFL season and another one in League Two as 24-25 dawns. What's going to happen? How are the promotion contenders, the favourites, if you like, Chesterfield, Notts County, MK Dons, Doncaster Rovers, and Port Vale and Gillingham going to get on in the fourth tier, and can they meet expectations? Likewise, who's going to struggle at the bottom of the league? Which of the relegated clubs are best placed to challenge? And can Bromley make an impression, making their EFL debut? Lots to get into then, and lots to discuss in this bumper season preview podcast. Yes, welcome along to this season preview podcast here on EFL Debate. Really looking forward to getting into it. We're joined by Matt Boosey from Gills In The Blood TV. We're also joined by Tranmere Rovers fan Ben Jones, hopefully in video form at some point, but for now in audio. And we will be joined by Tom Williams of Notts to talk about hopefully very shortly. But for now, I think it's a really interesting time to look at each of our predictions. And I want to start with you, Matt. These are predictions that everyone's got up there in terms of what we all think. If you want to have a little gander at it now, everyone, of course, has got MK Dons winning the title. So we'll see how that prediction plays out. Three of us have got Accrington Stanley being relegated, but Ben's actually got them staying up. Elsewhere, tricky seasons for Newport County. Most of us are predicting. So, Matt, is there one that you'd like to challenge me or Ben on in terms of our predictions for League Two this season?
Just having a look.
Sure. What do you think about Gillingham then? Do you think, because obviously I've got Gillingham finishing fourth, you've got them fourth as well, but Ben and Ben and Tom have got them finishing in the top three. So what would your prediction, what do you think's in store for Gillingham?
Well, first of all, I'd take any of them. I'd bite your arm off now if that was offered it to me.
Yeah.
I think in terms of maybe why I've got us just outside the automatics and a couple of us have got us in is probably just the fact that I think we need a couple more, one or two more certainly. I think it'll probably be a case of one in, one out now, rather than just keep padding out the squad, because essentially we've got a very solid squad now. Even if the likes of Ollie Hawkins and George Lapsley stay, then I'm not going to be, if we get to September the 1st and Lapsley and Hawkins are part of our squad, I'm not going to be overly disappointed. Hawkins can do two jobs. Essentially, he's a backup centre half and he's probably a backup centre forward as well now. If Lapsley's your second option as a number 10, then you're not doing too bad. But yeah, I think I'm probably just holding back a little bit because of the unknown of Mark Bonner, despite him being very good at the level with Cambridge. It's a new club for him. It's new surroundings. He's got to get used to us. We've got to get used to him. And obviously there's that nagging doubt that we haven't scored enough goals for the last 3 years. And it's all right on paper saying that we've sorted that out. And it looks like we've gone some way with Aaron Rowe, Jack Nolan, Amani Little, Nevitt, Jacob Wakeling now on loan. But ultimately, we've got to go and do it on the green stuff and not just on paper. So that's probably holding me back at the moment. But at the same time, to contradict myself a little bit, I'm fairly confident we'll have enough to get in the top 7 definitely this season.
I agree. I think Gillingham are a very safe bet when it comes to the top 7. Ben, anything you'd like to challenge me or Matt on in terms of our predictions?
There's nothing which jumps out too much. I mean, I think we've all gone relatively similar, especially around the playoff area. I mean, I guess the one that probably stands out to me is probably at the other end of the table, that I'm the only one there that doesn't have Accrington to go down.
Yeah. Why are you the only one to have Accrington staying up then, Ben?
Yeah, I think although they slashed their budget quite publicly and maybe haven't had a huge summer recruitment wise, there's other clubs who I think are coming into the season in a worse position. You've got Harrogate, who have only brought in 4 players this summer. I think Morecambe have had a huge squad turnover and maybe, haven't really brought any quality in there at all. There's probably 1 or 2 good League Two players. The rest are kind of picking up scraps that other clubs have let go from the fringe of their squads. And then Newport as well. I'd kind of expected a good summer from Newport with their good ownership, but that hasn't really materialised. And then on top of that, this week they've lost Will Evans to Mansfield. Now they may, go and buy a couple of players now or get a couple of players in on free transfers. There's sort of 3 weeks of the window left. I believe it closes at the end of the month in League Two. But even then, you're not starting the season with your actual squad, and you haven't had a proper pre-season, and you kind of encounter the issues that we had at Tranmere last year. So yeah, I think there's other clubs in worse positions. I'm not expecting Accrington to pull up any trees this year, but I just think they're efficient enough as a club and they always seem to overachieve a bit, that they'll be just about okay this year and keep themselves away from that dogfight at the bottom. So yeah, it's going to be a really competitive league, I think, this year. In general, you've kind of Stockport and Mansfield, Wrexham all going up. The three biggest budgets, so they've all gone, and then even Forest Green, who went down, I believe, had a top 6 or 7 budget. So it's kind of narrowed the playing field quite a lot this year, which makes it a lot more unpredictable. But yeah, I've just got a feeling that Accrington will be okay, and then there's always in the back of my mind with Morecambe as well that the way I've interpreted some of the things going on this summer, that they will be getting a points deduction at some stage. So because they had the player contract issues last year where they weren't paying players on time, and they were docked 3 points last season. And I'm sure I read somewhere that if it happened again, they would then get like a cumulative punishment. So in theory, that happened over the course of the summer, and they, in my eyes, are in line to get like a -6 point deduction. So
well, that's the other thing. I wanted to come to you on this, Matt. I'm sure if we had Joel Shooter on the podcast or one of the Morecambe fans, they'd be arguing against it. But although I've got Morecambe staying up, as you can see in these predictions, I've got them finishing in 22nd because of the Derek Adams factor. I also see a world where Derek Adams leaves again. And the sort of, you've got this chaos that Jason Whittingham has created, the financial instability, the fact that they've signed players who would have been nowhere near an EFL contract if it wasn't for the circumstances of Morecambe, and then the points deduction, and then you could very easily see a situation where they end up getting a very low points tally. Hopefully they do avoid that with the fighting spirit that they've got and the unity at the club, I guess. But it's going to be a really tough season for the Shrimps, isn't it? Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no getting away from the fact that I can't see them being anywhere above the bottom third, to be honest, at any stage of the season. I did mine when I did my season preview. I broke it down into 4 categories to start, which was managerial ability, managerial experience, squad quality, and transfer window. So if you look at Derek Adams, ability, experience, 8 out of 10 for both. But then if you look at the squad and the transfer window, you're not getting much above 8, 9, 10 for the 2 put together. So there's a massive imbalance in terms of the squad and the manager that's running that squad. I tried to do it without factoring in potential points deductions because we don't know that's going to happen. But yeah, you'd have to be massively concerned if that punishment does come, because at the moment the squad is National League quality. And I'm not even sure it's top end National League quality, without any disrespect to Morecambe. There's a few that you look at and go, yeah, they're all right, they're solid enough, but there's probably only a handful. The rest, would you say they'd get into any team that's going to be potentially in the top half of the division? Absolutely not. No. And I know they signed 15 in one day, but a lot of them were just people that they were waiting to re-sign that had played from last season. So it's not new signings, it's not fresh impetus, it's not improving the existing squad. And then there's a lot that's just come in, I think, because they're essentially all they can afford, without being disrespectful again. I mean, I put down Keam, Cummins, Kelly, Rawson and Love, but they're not They're not people that jump out the page and think, well, they're game changers in any sense of the word. Sorry, that's not Morecambe. Sorry,
yeah. So that's
sorry, Ray, Burgoyne, and Stott were the three. Sorry, that I wrote down as key signings potentially, but it's key signings relatively speaking to what Morecambe are and where they are at the moment. Again, same point applies. You wouldn't say them players are going to get into any team that's got aspirations of being in the top 12, the top 10, certainly the top 7. So, yeah, let's hope for their sake, because I've met a lot of brilliant people at Morecambe through this show and my channel and just football in general, that they can manage to keep their heads above water again. But it's going to be very, very tough for the next 9 months.
I think on top of that, sorry, with Morecambe as well, they've kind of lost probably their 3 best players both over this window and in January, with kind of Mayer going, with Mellon getting recalled and sent elsewhere, and then with Bedo going to, or how do you pronounce that, over to Notts County. Probably their 3 best players. And last season they were pretty much they were pretty good first half of the season. I believe they were top half, doing really well, and then they were just slowly sliding. And I think they'll carry that momentum into this year without having any of that quality to basically win them games on their own. So they're going to have to strike lucky in the loan market, and they'll be going for sort of first loan players rather than second loan. And then, it's always roll of the dice whether those players are going to hit the ground running or not.
Well, a couple of Colchester fans have commented saying Colchester 8th midfielder. Colchester 8th midfield is awesome. Teddy Bishop, Jack Payne, and Arthur Reed. That's tasty. Thanks. That's from Colin Baker. And Joe has said, "Evening lads, Colchester fan here. So happy with our window and cannot believe it looks like we're going to keep Arthur Reed." So, with that in mind, Colchester, Matt, you're the one that's got Colchester up in 7th, getting that last playoff spot in your prediction. Why have you got Colchester in the top 7?
To just reiterate what the 2 lads have said there, I think the window's been phenomenal. I think the people that they've lost, I think you can say probably McGeehan will be a big miss. But I think the other 2, in terms of Jay Mingy, Jaden Fevrier, that were well sought after and have got a lot of potential to, and high ceilings. But I think in terms of the here and now, I don't think they're going to be missed as much potentially as maybe people think, because they're still young, they're still very raw, they're still very inconsistent. I'd imagine they've probably gone on to Stockport and they're not going to play all the time. They're probably something of a longer term project. But I just think the players that they brought in are very, very good at the level, very solid. They know the level, coupled with the fact that they've still got a few good youngsters and some good players in and around the squad. Danny Cowley's had a full pre-season with them. I just think we're going to go early and use the phrase, but yeah, they're massive dark horses for me. I mean, Teddy Bishop in the last couple of days, when I did my spreadsheet, was obviously he wasn't arrived, but I like John Kamani Gordon. I think he was at Carlisle previously, I believe, on loan from Crystal Palace a couple of seasons ago. Wide man, very, very good. I think he replaces.
They signed him on a 2-year contract, didn't they, Matt? Which I always think, if you can give a player, because I wouldn't necessarily say Kimani Gordon has really ripped it up in any of his loan spells yet, but I do feel like he's the kind of high potential player who you give him a bit of stability. You might have an asset on your hands now. He's got a bit of experience in the EFL.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think he'll kick on from that spell he had before. And then you've got solid pros like Jack Payne, Matt Macy, Rob Hunt. Rob Hunt, I think, got promoted out of this division a couple of years ago, Leighton Orient. Matt Macy, solid keeper. Jack Payne, I think's probably a step up on Noah Chilvers. Noah Chilvers was very, very good when he burst onto the scene, but then probably dropped off. And I think, no disrespect again to Scottish football, but I think the destination that Chilvers has now gone to sort of emphasises the point that his form had dropped off over the last 12, 18 months. I think if someone had signed him 2 years ago, he'd probably stay very top end of League 2, or dare I say it, bottom half of League 1 at worst. So no, I just think they've got all the makings of everything being very solid with a lot of League 2 know-how. I mean, again, to go back to my formula, Danny Cowley, experience, ability, solid 7 out of 10 at least across the board. Their transfer window, I think, has been one of the best this summer, and I think their squad's pretty well balanced and fairly solid across the board as well.
Yeah, I think Lyle Taylor's an interesting one that Joe's raised, because he has had potential attitude issues at was it Charlton, where he refused to play because he wanted to move. But what I would say is that I think if he was signing for anyone other than Danny Cowley or signing someone he didn't already have a relationship with, I might be more sceptical of the signing, because I'm not a massive one for 34-year-olds that have played in a higher league and just assuming that they're going to be great necessarily. But I think the fact that he worked with Danny Cowley at Concord Rangers all those years ago, I think adds to the romanticism of that deal. And I think he could mature and be a good example for the likes of Bradley Ironvey, and who I think has a lot of potential as well. Talking of high potential, I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Williams from the Not to Talk About podcast. How are you, Tom? You right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How is everyone? And what have I missed too much? Hopefully not too much chat.
No, not too much. We're just going through some predictions, each of our predictions, and I suppose I wanted to pick your brains on your 1 to 24, which is Tranmere Rovers finishing 6th. No, Bradford City, sorry, finishing 6th. Why have you got the Bantams in your top 7?
I think that, yeah, it's a really interesting one, because obviously I had them there sort of similar position last season. I think a lot of people are always lured into the trap, I want to say, of putting them in around the playoffs, and then it goes wrong. So you might wonder why I've done the same again, and I've fallen for it for another year. Simple reason being, I just think on paper the squad looks really strong. They've made some good signings. I know that Callum Johnson's injured, but he's a really good signing, and hopefully we'll be back soon. They've obviously added promotion winners, him being one. They've got quality in their squad. Obviously, Cook up top is one of the best forwards in the division. And I think the main reason is Graham Alexander. I know that, Gabby, you weren't the biggest fan of his appointment at Bradford, but I, at the time, was of the opinion he's the kind of fit they needed at the club. And it didn't work for him once, but it was a poor fit. I think it has worked at Bradford. And also, they only finished, I think it was 1 point off the playoffs last season. So they weren't a million miles away anyway. Full pre-season with him. I don't know. I've got a good feeling about them. But like I've said, it has felt that way before, and they've fooled me before. So hopefully not again.
My worry with Bradford City is the possibly the age profile of the squad, and also I think they're very obvious, if you like, in that quote unquote in their recruitment process. I think they sign CVs rather than footballers. I feel like it's very rare that you would say Bradford City have signed a player that's a little bit under the radar, that's sort of come out of nowhere, and they end up becoming this amazing player. I can't really think of too many players where that's happened with Bradford City. Now, Bobby Poynton's a talent that I really like, but I was amazed to hear from lower tiers that that he's not necessarily expecting to start regularly this season, because I think Graham Alexander's not necessarily a manager that likes to trust youth, even when someone like Bobby Poynton has shown this incredible potential. So I'm a little bit apprehensive about Bradford, I've got to say.
Yeah, no, I completely take that. There's another young lad as well at Bradford who is exciting, Harry Everton, I think his name is, who, like you say, Alexander isn't necessarily one to blood the youth. I think you made a great point about the signing CVs rather than players. I like that line a lot, and I think it's a really good point. They do perhaps make obvious transfers. All the signings they've made obvious, yes, they are, but I also think they've got a nice blend of experience that are proven winners as well. I think that's something I've looked for this season. Is I've looked at squads that have got proven winners in. I think the 3 teams that went automatically last season had plenty of winners in there, whether that be management or playing staff or both. And so that's kind of probably what I've gone for a little bit more this season.
So then, Tom, do you fancy having a gander at each of our predictions and maybe challenging one of us on something?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You know what? I'm going to go with Carlisle for any of you that put them high, because I got you've all got them high, because I got a lot of stick. So I'm going to get on top of it before you throw it back at me, because I got a lot of stick from their fan base for putting it so low. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Can you guys maybe help me feel more positive about a team that only got 3 more points than Forest Green did in League One?
Interesting. Ben, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I guess for me, a lot of the faith in Carlisle is going on Paul Simpson being re-energized to kind of prove a point this year after, having a really poor League One campaign. he's now essentially working at a different club to the one he got promoted 2 years ago, where they've had this takeover now, and they've got the funds, and they've been beating other clubs to signing players. The new left wing back they got, Cameron Harper, I know that we at Tranmere were trying to get him, and Carlisle essentially blew us out the water financially. So, yeah, I think they've done some pretty good work in the transfer market on top of already having some very good kind of like League Two ready players. I'm thinking like Adam Armstrong, who didn't quite really do enough in League One, but
Luke Armstrong.
Luke Armstrong. Yeah, apologies, not Adam.
No.
Completely different league. But with Luke, he's got a really good record at League Two in a Harrogate side that's not really ever been above kind of mid-table. So I'm thinking, they've had a summer to presumably find a way of building a system to get the best out of these players, and signing of someone like Harper, who, from what the reports from Scotland were saying at the time we were looking at him, was that he's a very good crosser of the ball and very good from set pieces. So I think they'll have a bit more synergy in their system this year. But to be honest, with that whole kind of bracket that on my prediction I did between sort of, I don't know, like 6 and maybe 12, in my eyes, that was all, pretty similar kind of quality amongst the team as a whole. And you could toss a coin between any of those teams in those positions. I think it'll be really tight in there this year. And Carlisle just edged it slightly for me, just due to Simpson's previous promotions.
Yeah, I personally feel I can understand where you're coming from, because I do feel like the fact the sort of the positivity around the new ownership has kind of almost disguised maybe quite how poor the form was last season. In terms of those runs of defeats, I think it was 12 and 13 at one point. So I do understand where you're coming from, but I also look at a spine of Harry Lewis, Aaron Hayden if he stays fit, John Mesh, how influential he was in League Two. You've got Callum Guy in midfield and his playmaking qualities, and then again Charlie Wyke if he stays fit, with Luke Armstrong, as Ben mentioned. I think that's a pretty good spine if you throw in Geordie Kelly as well. I don't think that's a bottom half League Two spine. Now it's got to come together on paper. I do understand how you might wane a little bit your faith in Simpson after last season. But for me, I don't see that. Well, I think, put it this way, I think either Paul Simpson gets it right this season, or dare I say, if we're looking at the worst case scenario, I would guess another manager will get it right at another point. So I don't really see Carlisle United finishing in the bottom half.
And I think another thing, sorry, just quickly, is that when I was doing my table as well, the sides I've kind of put in that sort of top half bracket, away from the top four, are sides with continuity that haven't had to do too much business this summer. So a lot of people are talking about maybe Colchester doing really well, but they've recruited quite a few this summer, and I'm just not sure that they can turn that into a promotion campaign in one season. Whereas you look at the likes of Chesterfield, Carlisle, Tranmere, even to an extent Bradford, and there's only been kind of 6, 7, 8 incomings in those clubs. So I think that continuity counts for a lot in League Two. And we saw last season that, generally speaking, the sides who had that continuity were the ones who ended up in the top 7 last year. So that's a big factor that weighed on me there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Matt, would you like to pick out one to challenge one of us from the list?
I'd just like to challenge Ben's last point there about, massive overhauls and squad churn and not being successful. 2 words for that, Crawley Town. So,
there's got to be exceptions, but I just think as a general rule.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But there always seems to be one that is everyone's that no one's picked up on, and I just think Colchester could be that this year. That's my reasoning behind it. And Danny Cowley's, dare I say, a more experienced manager than Scott Lindsay was at this stage last season. In terms of other ones, again, we're all pretty similar, aren't we? Aside from Tom sticking Carlisle all the way down there, I think.
I guess
I've got Fleetwood the lowest, haven't I?
Yeah, Fleetwood. Yeah, why have you got Fleetwood that low?
Just a couple of factors, and I contradict myself, and I understand that fully with Port Vale having them in the top 3, but their business was just that eye-catching that I couldn't put them lower than where I did. But generally, and we were example a couple of years ago, teams that come down out of League Two don't go straight back up. I think the season we got relegated, I think of the 4 sides, I think Wimbledon were the highest in 13th, so it takes a while to adjust. Charlie Adam, I know, has been doing some good work there, and I understand that there's some positive sounds coming out of Fleetwood that, you know, in time he'd be a very good manager for them or elsewhere if he does well at Highbury. But I just think it's just a combination of things, and they've also got this. They've still got the ownership thing over their head with the Pilly situation being put inside it. It doesn't scream, you know, all's rosy in the garden behind the scenes. I know they're probably going to put on a united front, and I totally understand that. And we can only gauge what we see as outsiders looking in, so to speak. But I just think there's too many factors for me to be able to put Fleetwood higher than where I did, which I think was 19th.
Yes, it was 19th. Yeah,
they've lost some good players as well.
Just pin on terms of them selling players. I think that's more of a worry in terms of they've lost a lot of young players. I know a lot of people, Fleetwood fans especially, have said, oh, well, they didn't play for us, so it doesn't really matter that we sold them, we've cashed in. But like, these are players they've loaned out so they can play when they come back, and they've and the teams that are taking these players as well aren't teams that get it wrong. Like, these are teams that are taking their best young players, and presumably they're going to go on and do pretty well. And they've got a fair few out on loan in Ireland as well, who I feel would probably be better served playing for them in League Two than at the minute. So for me, the fact that they keep selling their young players is a worry. Like, I know for a table prediction it might not be, but it alludes to what Matt's saying. Like, behind the scenes, off the pitch, like, everything doesn't, outside looking in, doesn't look 100% great, especially if you're selling all your assets. So I don't know. For me, I think I had them not too much higher than you did, a little bit higher, mid-table-ish, but I can completely see where you're coming from.
Interesting. Ben, anything you'd like to pick out?
Sorry, just kind of a quick look there. Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess Tom's not really put his own club not too high, but they did feel like they were one of the harder clubs to predict this year, because you can kind of see a world where they challenge MK Dons right at the top, but also you can see another scenario where they've lost Langstaff, who was kind of the poacher, got on the end of everything. Can they fix the defensive issues that they had last year? And if they can't, they'll finish mid-table again. So yeah, I just wanted to hear kind of Tom's point of view on Notts there.
Yeah, I think you made a really nice point about we could challenge the MK Dons. I think the odds, obviously, I know I'm not a big bettor myself, but the odds for the teams came out, and Notts, I think, 14-1, and I think we're probably the best value because we've probably got the highest ceiling of the teams that are down there. I think we've probably got potential to be more like, we could finish quite low. We're quite a volatile team, I would say, in the predictions.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people put us 10th, 11th, 12th, and I think like that is, I can't argue too much with that. That based on how we performed from January onwards, like, we were right down near the bottom. I think before Langstaff went, and it's not even because, like you mentioned, he is a poacher, he gets on the end of everything. I think it's more the symbolicness of him going, and we've given the number 9 to Kevin Scott, and I hope Kevin Scott does really well. I really like him, but that suggests we're probably not bringing in a forward to replace him.
Oh, you don't think you'll sign another striker then, Tom?
Maybe we might sign a striker, but I don't think it'd be a starter.
Did you not think you actually made that replacement back in January when you brought Jatta in? I always kind of felt when you spend 150 grand on a striker, it's probably because they were doing that in case he went in January.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think Jatta will start, and like, he should be really good. And he's had a few fitness issues and stuff over the course of his career. Hopefully he stays fit, and if he does, he could have a really good season. But I think that's what the big thing about why I've not put Notts too high is because there's a lot of unknowns. Like, we have signed some really good defenders on paper. Are the defensive issues systematic, or are they personnel related? That's a question, and we'll find out this season. Stuart Maynard, I'm a huge fan of, but based on the evidence of his reign, I can understand why people haven't put him too high.
I think possibly a bit of both, because I'm sure you take a certain risk by playing this high line, really expansive style. At the same time, I definitely think that there's a personnel component to it, where if you've got a bit more pace in the defence and defenders who are stronger in 1v1s, that's obviously going to make a difference. And I also think better at knowing how to formulate a system that's good at guarding against counterattacks. And this is why I'm actually quite hopeful that Notts County have had the lessons, if you like. It's like you kind of came up, this is my perception, Tom, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think Notts County came up with this sort of more idealistic template of how things should work and kind of copying and pasting what they did in the National League. And I could understand why you did that. I kind of bought into that myself, as you can remember, but I actually think last season brought some really valuable lessons for Notts County in terms of how to make it work in reality at this level. Whereas Chesterfield, who are heavy favourites, I think, for the title at, well, they're 6-1 to Notts County's 14th, they maybe haven't had those lessons yet. So, although they have got a more experienced manager in Paul Cook. But yeah, I'm really excited about Notts County this season because of maybe some of those lessons that have been learned.
Yeah, I think, and you make a great point about personnel in terms of just like not making mistakes. I think if it's more solid personnel in terms of ones that aren't as error prone, we might have got away with it a little bit more last season. And I think you're spot on about being we kind of had an idealistic view of things. And I am excited about Notts as well. I've got them 7th, and I do think we can do really well. I think we can finish higher. I think we have potential to. But like you say, there are still a few question marks, I guess, over it. My one probably big concern, sounds really bizarre, is that we get the defence right, but then it affects us at the top end of the pitch. And so we go from being a team that scores 80, 90 goals or whatever to like scoring high 60s, which like is still okay, but I worry that maybe we go from being a little bit more of a we'll blow teams away to win 2-1 or draw 2-2 or something.
I think that could be true with Rob McDonald, and there was another centre-back you signed, not Matty Platt and Jacob Badeau. Who's the other one?
Robbie Cundy.
Oh, Robbie Cundy, yeah. So I wouldn't think of Robbie Cundy, and I certainly wouldn't think of Rob McDonald as ball-playing centre-halves. So I think if they have to play particularly often, I think that could have influenced them from a ball-playing perspective. But I actually think Matty Platt and Jake Badeau are going to be just as good as what you had in possession last season, but they're going to be better defensively, and that's the kind of spot you want to hit with recruitment. So I don't have too many concerns if your first choice back three stays fit, which, by the way, I think your first choice back three is going to be Macari, Platt and Badeau.
Yeah, I think it will as well. And yeah, Matty Platt is getting a lot of plaudits already. So again, your sort of shout of him being better on the ball than people think because of his time at Barrow, it's already proven to be coming to fruition, which is good. And you mentioned Chesterfield. I guess that would be who I would want to pick from your guys' one. I mean, I think me and Matt had them out of the playoffs, I think, if I remember. And obviously they're title favourites, as you alluded to. I've seen a lot of people have them really high. My main question is, like, we saw Notts, for example, come up last season and get woefully and cruelly exposed defensively. And with all due respect to Chesterfield, I think Chesterfield, for actually probably the first third or maybe first half of the season, actually probably looked like a better team or on par with Notts and Wrexham. But defensively, at the end, towards the end of the season, they conceded 64, 65 goals, whatever it was. So I guess the question is, why so high for them? I mean, I've got them 8th, so obviously they're a good team, but why playoff and potentially title favourites according to the bookies?
Well, I'm happy to take this one. I think for me, do you know what? Where do I go? I think I was actually a little bit reluctant to put them in my top 7 because I did watch clips of them in the National League, and I felt like their play was a little bit simplistic. I didn't see the same nuances in the patterns of play that I saw with Notts County the year before. And I think Paul Cook as a manager, his main strength is getting footballers to run through brick walls for him. And I think I don't think he's a good tactician and all the rest of it, but I don't think he builds a philosophy, a blueprint that's quite as maybe advanced as maybe what we've seen with Notts County. But I think his teams can be more efficient because of his experience, I guess, as well. And I guess it was kind of leaning towards the individual quality as well. I do actually have some reservations about how it's going to work with, say, I think, Ben, actually, we spoke about this, didn't we, in May when Paddy Madden first signed. Yeah. How are you going to get 33-year-old Will Grigg and 34-year-old Paddy Madden to press against the ball, given how important, given how costly not being able to do that was for Notts County last season? Yeah, I've got a few reservations about Chesterfield, but I think they've got just about enough individual quality to get into the top 7.
Yeah, I think for me, they're going to be more pragmatic than Notts were when Notts came up, as we just spoke about, talking about Notts there. Notts were very idealistic and they had to play a certain way to win a game of football. And, you know, even when opposition teams clearly had a counter to that, they didn't try and change. You know, I saw that personally at Prenton Park New Year's Day, where, you know, we were having great success of turning the ball over and getting pretty much all our chances from that. I don't think that kind of obvious tactical error would happen with Chesterfield.
Sure.
I think Paul Cook will be a bit more pragmatic, and he's going to have, you know, plan B, C, and D, and be a bit more open to changing it up. But yeah, I did have some reservations over them as well. That yeah, they don't quite have the right blend up top. I think Grigg and Madden are maybe a little bit too similar, especially being a bit older as well. Can they keep up with the intensity I think we'll see in League 2 this season? I'm not too sure. And I guess with them, for me, putting them at 6th was kind of, as I said, that kind of block of 6 or 7 sides there. I don't think there's too much between them. And I'm kind of banking on a bit of early momentum with Chesterfield coming up. And you always kind of see that with the promoted sides, that first half of the season, they do pretty well. For as long as I can remember, you know, the champions that have come up have done well for at least the first half of the season. We saw that even with Sutton the other year, who nearly broke into the playoffs. They finished 7th. 8th, just outside the playoffs. So I think we'll see a similar thing with Chesterfield, and in a slightly more balanced League 2 this year, where there isn't a top 3 with crazy budgets. I think it might be enough to just see them then cling on to a playoff spot in the back half of the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I want to actually have a look at what our average positions was, and thanks to Ben for putting this together. It looks a bit. Can I don't know if it's possible to zoom in on that.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I tell you what, you have a fiddle with that, and then I'll come back to you. But I think Matt, it's interesting in terms of your top 7, because you've got AFC Wimbledon getting into the top 7, which none of us actually have, because I've got them finishing 8th, just missing out. Tom's got them finishing 12th, just inside the top half. So has Ben. So what is it for you about AFC Wimbledon? Is it what we've spoken about earlier in terms of that continuity point of view?
Yeah, I think that's got a lot to do with it. They've not signed loads. They've not lost loads either. I think Johnny Jackson's improving as a manager. I think he should be learning from errors that he's made last season, the season before, even at Charlton, when he had a couple of caretaker spells in charge. I think he's more experienced now, more rounded as a manager. And I like their business. I think they've got a good balance in terms of the players that they've got in. I know we always say don't go back, but I think Joe Pigott could be a very astute pickup. To complement what they've already got. I know some might say he's maybe a little bit similar to Bugill, but you can't have too many good players at the end of the day. I think Miles Hippolyte's another good pickup who's just been promoted out of this division. He'll offer versatility in the middle of the park to maybe counter losing someone like Armani Little, who's joined us. Alistair Smith looks like a really good loan deal. I know they've lost a few. If you look at sort of names, they have lost some key players, as you'd say. I think like Ronan Curtis is always one of them players that as an opposition fan, you absolutely despise him, but I think you'd love to have him in your team because he's got ability and he's a bit of an arsehole to play against.
Yeah, he's at Wimbledon last year, Ronan Curtis, and now he's gone to Vale, hasn't he?
Yeah, again, and that goes back to my point about Port Vale. Their business has been absolutely phenomenal in my eyes. Jack Curry, probably at left back, is probably the standout that's disappeared, gone to Oxford, I think, in the Championship. And obviously Armani Little, like I've already alluded to, has come to us. But I don't think they're going to be too hurt by the departures. Like I say, Johnny Jackson is improving as a manager. I think if he learns from the mistakes he's made in previous years, then yeah, I can see him having a real go at that top 7.
Yeah, I sort of like the continuity aspect. And Tom, I do wonder if, we can talk about Joe Pigott signing and the possible partnership he's got with Omar Bajil, but I actually like the relationship potentially between Callum Maycock and Josh Kelly, because Maycock actually signed from Solihull Moors after Kelly also signed from Moors in January. And there was a lovely goal in pre-season, I don't know if you happened to be able to catch that, where Kelly produced this lovely balletic finish. It was so deft, wasn't it? And I just wonder, is Josh Kelly going to be able to catch fire this season? And have you got someone who can kind of pick him out?
Yeah, I really like Josh Kelly. I mean, he was one that I kind of wanted, and I don't think he was. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think he would have been cheap, because there were rumours when he went to Solihull that they paid a fair amount from Maidenhead, and I don't think Solihull would have let him go, especially midway through the season, sort of cheap. I don't think they would have let him go for under what his value they valued him at. So I think that Wimbledon have definitely seen something in him. They definitely will have faith in him to do that. And like, he's such a well-rounded forward. What I like about him is he's got a little bit of everything about his game. And Callum Maycock's a little bit like that in midfield actually as well. Like, he's got a little bit of everything about his game as well. And I think he might have even provided the assist for that pre-season goal. Kind of driving from midfield, and he has loads of energy, and he's versatile as well. And with Wimbledon, what's interesting about them, I have seen that they're changing system. They're into a sort of a 3-5-2, where last season it was so 4-4-2. It was like ridiculous. They kind of.
Do you know what, Tom? It's really interesting that, because Johnny Jackson was a 3-5-2 disciple at Charlton, and initially he was very staunch in that at Wimbledon, and then I think he had to change. Might have been midway through the 22-23 campaign, getting my seasons mixed up now. And then actually the last season, when they finished 10th, it was more a 4-4-2, sometimes with Tilly and Nerfield coming inside, and you had Boojil and Al-Hamadi in the first half of the season. So actually it's interesting to see that he's going back to his sort of preferred formation, if you like, maybe with more scope to shape the squad as he wants.
Yeah, Al-Hamadi's the big miss though for me. Like, that's probably where I've had them drop down. And James Tilley as well. He started last season on fire, and he just didn't, I guess, maintain it. But what is so fascinating is that there's like probably 5-6 teams where you think, well, they could finish 7th, and Wimbledon were one of those teams where I thought, like, oh, I could put them in 7th. Like, I can see them being that team. So I can see where Matt's coming from with them being in the playoffs.
Sure. I wanted to bring up that 1-24 that Ben's given us. So if you can see it there, MK Dons, Gillingham and Doncaster is the top 3, based on the averages of each of our predictions, including Joel and Danny from who are also from the podcast. Notts County, Port Vale, Chesterfield and Tranmere. Very interesting to see Carlisle wouldn't get in the top 7 based on the averages. Wimbledon 9th, no real surprise there. Likewise with Colchester in 10th. Bradford in 11th. I suspect my 15th kind of nudged them a few places down. Walsall in 12th, Grimsby in 13th, Fleetwood Town in 14th. I think lots of people have, other than Matt, who went with 19th. I think we were all pretty much on the same page with Fleetwood. Crewe in 15th. That's a big jump actually that we're predicting for Crewe, but they have lost a lot of key players. Swindon in 16th, Barrow in 17th, Bromley in 18th, Salford 19th, Cheltenham 20th, and then a bottom 4 of Newport and Harrogate just above the relegation zone, with Morecambe and Accrington Stanley going down. It does seem to be very clear that Yeah, Cheltenham, Newport, Harrogate, and Morecambe and Accrington Stanley. A lot of, I don't know about you guys, but most of the relegation predictions that I've seen includes 2 of those sides. Tom, do you think it's fair to say that those are that it'll be 2 from that quintet that are relegated this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is that's fair. At one point, I flirted with putting Salford in there. And Salford are another one of those teams where I feel like I could see them being right down there, but also like conversely, I can see them being right near the top. But in terms of
it feels odd to go that far against someone like Carl Robinson, though, doesn't it?
Hence why I can see them being near the top, because of him, the fact of the manager. And the other 5 teams, there's different reasons why you'd have them all down there. I actually think like Morecambe, I had surviving by 1 place, but again, truthfully, deep down, I could definitely see them being solid mid-table, and like that wouldn't surprise me at all.
I was expecting you to say the complete opposite, you know.
Okay, I just think with Derek Adams, like they've not signed bad players. They've signed, okay, they're not the best. There's some of them in National League quality for sure, but they're going to work hard. They've signed a profile player that, and also players that perhaps are being given a chance in the EFL that wouldn't otherwise be given that chance.
Well, do you know what, Tom, as well? I know that I've said a few things about Morecambe's signings and that some people have said have been a bit harsh, and I never mean to be kind of personal with anything I say. I've got to be able to offer questioning opinions, you know, in order to make the praising ones sort of count for something, right? But I think one thing I really do like about Morecambe is that, or one sort of silver lining of the ownership strife and what that's created is, I think that the fan base are just behind everyone at the football club that isn't Jason Whittingham. And what I love is that the fan base are basically getting behind all of the signings. And you don't, you know, some clubs, it's like, oh, we signed this player, and it's like, oh, is he quite the level we're going to need? Why are we signing a player from a relegator? You know, all that kind of thing. There isn't that at Morecambe. There's going to be fans that are just going to sing all game for Derek Adams and for the players. And you know what? I kind of like that sort of sense of unity. And I think that's one thing that could help Morecambe just about get through what's going to be inevitably such an arduous campaign.
No, yeah, 100%. I like that you said about them singing the all game, and I think that's something they had last season before Derek Adams went. Was they were like a team he did not want to go and play. Like I don't think anyone wanted to. I think at the start of the season they were unbeaten at home for quite a while, if I remember correctly. They were sort of when you look at each week, you think, well, they're pretty good, and they were obviously there were a few times where they were potential to get into the playoffs, and their circumstances 12 months ago weren't too dissimilar. They only had 6 players under contract last summer. I think they had 4 this summer. So it's not like they've not been here before. So, but in terms of the other relegation sides, I want to know your guys' opinions on Harrogate, because I mean, I had them low, but maybe not quite seen them drop. But what is everyone?
Sure. Let me make my case for Harrogate to go down, and then Matt or Ben can kind of come in on this. I actually like their additions in the fullback areas. Well, I think they've signed Zico as there from Maidenhead at right back, and Mate Folds at left back I like. And I like their additions like wide as well, with Stephen Duke McKenna coming in. The problem for me with Harrogate is the spine, because they've got they've lost Rob McDonald, who was an aerially dominant centre-back, and I don't think they've got another centre-half that can do the job that he did last year. I think that's a massive problem, given how much they struggled without him last season. I don't see a midfielder that I would trust to run games. I think Stephen Dooley, Levi Sutton, and the lad they got from Scotland, whose name is Dean Cornelius, I don't. They're okay, but I don't really trust them to really grab games by the scruff of the neck. Josh Falkingham is a spent force, if I'm being brutally honest. Much though I appreciate what he does for his club on a community basis and a sort of figurehead, but I think footballing wise, I think he's a spent force. And then Josh March, is the only out and out striker that you've got. Harrogate have got, and he scored 1 goal in 25. And then the other options are Jack Muldoon, Sam Follerin, who aren't really out and out strikers. So for me, they might have improved in the fullback areas and out wide. And they've got a good goalkeeper as well in James Belshaw. But I think that all becomes a little bit irrelevant to an extent if you've not got a centre back who can head the ball out of the box. you've not got a midfielder who you can trust to run games, and you've not got a centre forward who can spearhead attacks and score goals. So for me, those three key areas are massive concerns for me, and I don't expect Harrogate Town to go into the window apparently to bring in more signings, which suggests that the finances are sort of, the budget's being cut under Irving Weaver. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really tough season for Harrogate, and I see them going down.
I think something we spoke about just before the show as well, Gab, is with only bringing 4 players in, it's left them with a squad of 20. And on the face of it, that's okay. But, you look at a few of those positions in their squad, and if they were to pick up any injuries of any length of time, and say Matty Folds got injured at left back, there's not really anyone to cover him. And I think it's the same in a few other positions. So with such a small squad, when it's already not the strongest, I can see them struggling there. I mean, they might be able to go in the window in January to then alter that, but once you've got that negative momentum going, it's hard to turn that around. So that's kind of why I have Harrogate quite low down. I think I've got them third bottom. So yeah, I can see that being a problem, the squad size with them. I know that, kind of talking about using Tranmere as an example, we had the opposite last year. We had a massive squad, and the talk was we were going to slash that basically as much as we could, and we were going to have a small squad, and it was going to be a tight-knit squad, and that's going to end up being about 25 or 26, and that's, according to our manager, that is, Adkins, that is the smallest kind of size squad you can have in League Two to keep up with the demands of the intensity of the games, especially the Saturday, Tuesday games when that happens in the winter. So for them to have 5 or 6 players less than that who are pretty much of a lesser standard anyway, yeah, just a big red flag for me.
Ben, you've got no, sorry, I'm not asking Ben, I'm asking Matt. Matt, you've got Barrow higher than any of us three, and you're a Gillingham fan who watched Stephen Clements last season, and I guess given that it didn't work out for Stephen Clements last season, I would have almost expected you to be lowest on Barrow. So why do you think that they'll keep a presentable front, I guess, in mid-table?
If you can say that to the Gillingham fan base, that would be great, that Matt's got them higher than anyone else on the show, because I've taken a lot of grief for my supposed sacking of Stephen Clements. Apparently, if you run a Twitter account and you've got a YouTube channel, then you hold great influence at football clubs. Anyway, we digress. Pete Wild has gone, which I think is a massive loss for the football club. To then replace him with a manager who's got 6 months' experience in the game as a number one is a massive gamble. To replace him with a manager that's got 6 months in the professional game as a number one who wasn't great in his previous job makes it a bigger gamble for me. I think they've lost a couple of key players. I like the signing of Conor Mahoney. No disrespect to Barrow. I think it's probably a better move for the football club than it is for Conor Mahoney. I expected him to go to a bigger club, or certainly higher up the league. But we all know that geography and family reasons come into it. And I'm sure Stephen Clements has said to him, look, you're going to be my main man. You're going to play every week. So good luck to Conor and good luck to Stephen. I wish no ill on Stephen Clements. But I just think there's too many factors. You have to take into account the fact that their form at the back end of last season was absolutely horrific as well. I mean, we're talking about a team, if we were sat here in February saying they're nailed on for the playoffs, and they ended up finishing 8th or 9th. So I think there's red flags all over the show at the moment. Aside from Mahoney, Andrew Dallas comes with a load of question marks. If you can get him back to Andrew Dallas 2 or 3 seasons ago, it's going to be a brilliant addition. But there's been a lot of water under the bridge since Andy Dallas has put up decent numbers. Theo Vassell brings in a bit of experience, probably to counter the loss of someone like George Ray and James Chester, who's gone to Salford. Maybe it's a gut feeling. Maybe it's the fact that I watched Stephen Clements' football team for 6 months and saw no tangible improvements in what he was supposed to do with us. And I get, different size clubs, different aspirations and that type of thing. And like I say, I wish him no ill, but I just think there'll be a drop-off. Like I say, the biggest factor for me is replacing someone who knew the football club inside out and did very well, probably overachieved, with someone who's still learning his way in the game as a number one. For me, I think there will be quite a substantial drop-off, but still the highest on the show. So
Absolutely. Any more? Any other areas of intrigue? I guess.
Can we talk about Bromley?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. What are you thinking, Matt?
I just think, and I don't know what you gents think, I think they're one of the clubs in there that's probably got the biggest sort of potential to be probably 5, 6, 7 places higher than we've got them, or 5, 6, 7 places lower. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
I think in terms of I love their transfer business. I don't think they've lost any players that probably had much of an impact on their first team last season. I think the clue is if you look at retained release lists or transfers through the summer, and against the players that have left the football club, it still says without club, gives you a good indication that they're not someone that you'd say was a key player. I think
a bit of a detective there, Matt.
Well, you know, CID and all that. I do try. I think Michael Cheek will have a good season. I really, really do, and I really want him to as well, because he's waited a long time for his chance in the EFL. I was actually at Wembley to watch Bromley beat Solihull Moors on penalties in the spring, and yeah, I've read your 442 piece, Gab, and I like the little quip about will Bromley raise as many eyebrows as successfully as Byron Webster. I just think they've got a great character in Andy Woodman, in a manager whose stock is on the up massively. Yeah. Tom will be able to tell us probably plenty about that from his non-league knowledge. I know we were linked with him when just before Neil Harris took him. He actually turned us down because he wanted to get that project done at Bromley. I think Denanga's a very good signing. He was superb at the start of last season before probably blowing a little colder towards the end. Shawumni comes back in commanding centre half, which you're going to need. I think the standout though is probably is Lewis Lee for me. I think that's a really clever bit of business, and they've got a couple of good players as well. They've got experienced Miles Weston, who's not going to play every week. Well, Jude Arthur's dropped out of football leagues, now coming back into it to prove a point. I just think the mix is absolutely spot on for what Bromley need to do next season to establish themselves as a football league club.
You make some great points, Matt, there, and I really want to hear Tom's perspective on Andy Woodman as well, because he's brilliant insight on the National League. But I just wanted to quickly drop in before Tom comes in here about signing Cameron Congreve on loan from Swansea, because this isn't some youngster that's just come through Swansea's academy and is unproven in senior football. Cameron Congreve has been in and around Swansea's first team squad for what feels like a couple of years now, and he's a Wales under-21 international, and it's not like he's 17, 18, he's 20 now. So to get him, I think, is a really underrated coup. But Tom, I want to hear from you on Andy Woodman.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point to start with, the loan market. And I think if Andy Woodman, if you name a club, Andy Woodman's got a great contact there. He is one of the most well-connected people in football. And I mean, I think his son plays for Swansea, I think, and I'm not saying that is what's happened, but
it can be sometimes, can it? Yeah.
And, I mean, his best mate's Gareth Southgate, so he's like as well connected as it gets, and you can see it with his loan business all the way through the National League. Like, he's always brought in really, really good loans. Arsenal always give him a couple because of his time working there, and
he's got one this year, hasn't he, Tom? I think was it Foran, the centre halves come in?
Yeah, exactly. So they always seem to give him a couple. They always seem to do like a bit of a favour, really, and he repays them by getting them in there. And he's a great developer of young talent. I mean, Kellen Fisher has gone to Norwich City. Gab, you know more about that. And Ben Crowhouse has gone to Brentford in the Premier League back of last season. So, like, he's not just a manager who brings in young players, he develops them as well. But I think the thing with Bromley that makes me think like I probably have put them too low, and I do genuinely think that they could be a top half team because their style is just perfect for this league. It really is just perfect for this division. They're so direct, they're so physical. They almost don't want the ball at times. Like, they had the second lowest possession in the whole league. Only Maidenhead had lower in the National League, and they're part-time, and they're also super direct. And I think in a league where teams like for example, last season, we struggled with the physical step up. Like, Bromley are not going to struggle whatsoever physically. They've got so much experience. Byron Webster, who we mentioned, has played hundreds of games in the EFL. Andy Woodman has managed... not managing the EFL, but obviously has experience, been in and around some of the best dressing rooms. I just think what Matt said about the blend, I think it's a perfect blend. They haven't got necessarily a standout star player, maybe outside of Cheek, but I think what they have is a great collective unit, and the style I can't get away from that style. I mean, I'm not looking forward to playing them, and that is what every team's going to say every single week. And they're so good at set pieces as well. So they're good at a lot of aspects that I think can make them a really good League Two team.
I'm really excited to see how Cheek and Dinanga get on, because I know Cheek has scored 20 goals every season, I think, in the National League. I mean, how he's not had a chance in the EFL, in the EFL is beyond me yet. So it's great that he's got his opportunity. And do you know what? Marcus Dinanga is a striker I've always had half an eye on since. I remember watching. I used to cover Gresley for the Burton Mail back in sort of mid to late 2010s, and Marcus Dinanga faced them in a Derbyshire Cup final, I think, for Matlock. And Marcus Dinanga was absolutely outstanding. And even at that sort of level, you could tell that he had the potential to come on and sort of rise up the leagues. I think he was on loan from Burton at the time. And he's taken a bit longer than maybe I anticipated, but he's really done that. And 20 goals in the National League last season for Gateshead. So I think Dinanga and Cheek is a partnership I'm really excited to watch. My big question is whether Bromley can get the wing backs high quickly enough, because I think they operate with a sort of back five shape, and they are pretty conservative with how they go about things. So I think for me, it's going to be really important that at certain moments they are able to get their wing backs flying really high up the pitch. Whether Miles Weston can do that at 32, I'm not 100%.
I think Miles Weston's a bit older than 32, Gabe.
Yeah, he might be a bit older, yeah.
It's about 37, I think, now.
37, okay. Well, that feeds into my point.
Oh, yeah, but you mentioned as well in terms of the wing-backs is definitely a great point, but Dinanga as well, I want to touch on him. Like,
sure.
He did cool down at Gateshead, yeah, he did. But why Gateshead got him in the first place is because he gets into great positions. At Altrincham, he was like, his XG was really, really high, but his goals weren't like very good. I think he was probably performing by like 7 or 8. And so Gateshead picked him up, gets in those positions, and lo and behold, he scores goals. And like, I think maybe the conversation here today actually made me think that's a better signing than I thought it was, because I thought, well, they don't really play him that way, but actually they thrive on their strikers, Cheek being in the right position at the right time, and Dinanga's in the right position. And he's a great athlete as well. So could be, and his left foot, by the way, I mean, the way he hits the ball is unbelievable sometimes, the contact he gets. So yeah, I mean, he could be a really good pickup for sure.
Can I ask you a question, Tom, just quickly before Gabe tells us we've all got a shush? Him and probably Laurent Tallage were probably the two most intriguing additions that have come out of the National League into the Football League this summer. For me, both I actually had in potential targets video for Gills. I'd have loved us to have a look at both of them. Who do you see potentially being the most successful in League Two next season out of Tallage and Dinanga?
I'd have to go for the Swiss Superman. I'd have to go for him, for Laurent Tallage, because his overall game is just so good. He can link play. He can score goals. And you know what we're going to see from this season? We're going to see at least 1 or 2 screamers, because I said about Dinanga hitting the ball, but I think Tallage is even better at striking the ball. He can score from 30, 40 yards. Like he can hit it that hard and it will fly. So he will be. And what's interesting about him, he's not short, but he's not that tall, but he does compete physically. I think he's a complete package. My main concern for him is Rory Patton, I think, who signed from Scotland. A little bit similar, I think. I know Patton runs in behind a bit more than Tallage does, but they both do drop in similar zones. So if they get in each other's way or if they play together, that'd be my main concern. But I think in terms of just an overall player, I do really like him. I think he shouldn't really be playing this level, really. He should be higher. And I think that the fact that Aldershot got him last season was unbelievable business on their end, and I think he's gonna keep going up the leagues.
Thank you.
Interesting. I'm really curious to see how the season plays out. Swindon are an interesting one, because I think there would be quite a sometimes you might have 1 or 2 people that might buy into the size of the club and the potential if they do get it right. But actually, for all of us, I'm looking through it now. I've got Swindon 18th, 1 place higher than last year. Tom's got them in 13th. Ben's got them in 16th. And Matt's got them in 18th. So question for the panel here. Why have we got Swindon? Why have we all got Swindon in the bottom half when they are arguably the biggest club in the league, or certainly one of them?
I think for me, they're just too much of an off-the-pitch mess at the moment. There's too much noise, and that kind of leads into on-the-pitch issues. They don't seem to have any real plan at the minute with recruitment. They're kind of picking up sort of lost causes in terms of their transfers. Even kind of like Paul Glatzel, they signed towards the end of last season. He's extremely injury prone, as we found in our spell with us. So he's a very good player when he plays, but are you going to get 30 games out of him? Never mind 46. And it's kind of like that right through their squad, where there's players who will probably produce moments, and they will, in isolation, they'll probably go and beat some teams 5-0 here and there, as you'll kind of generally see from Swindon. But I just don't see them having a consistent enough squad to then translate into consistent performances that you need to get mid-table, never mind up towards the playoffs.
Interesting. Well, there you go. Any more before we close up? Any more pieces?
I guess if I can just quickly talk about ourselves at Tranmere, because I think for me we're quite an interesting one this year. I mean, I put us just outside the playoffs because kind of at the time I predicted it. We didn't have an alternative left back to Connor Wood, and we hadn't got any wingers through the door. Since then, we've brought Zach Bradshaw in, and Amari Patrick has signed after a trial. Who are two quite interesting signings. From what I'm hearing, Bradshaw's very good on the ball, and as I'm kind of expecting us to use the fullbacks as playmakers this year, I think that could be a really solid signing there, with kind of Cameron Norman on the other side as well, also being technically very strong. And I think he's going to pick up a lot of assists from what we've seen in pre-season, where he's ending up in very advanced positions, and the sort of front 3 or 4, whatever it is, whatever system we're playing, is quite interchangeable. And then with Luke Norris being fit now, he looks like he's really got kind of a point to prove this year. He was injured most of last year, but still kind of returned 6 goals in not many games. But I think he scored in every pre-season game. You know, Blackburn, he scored against Wigan, scored against Blackpool. So I'm expecting a good season there. And I think it's just whether we're definitely going to be consistent and efficient. And I think we'll probably be the fittest side in the league. But it's whether we have enough cutting edge, enough individual quality to go one step further and turn that kind of edge of the playoffs into an actual playoff berth.
Yeah, it's whether Amari. I know there's definitely a really high ceiling with Amari Hutchinson. Amari Hutchinson, that'd be a good signing.
Yeah, that would be a really good signing.
With Amari Patrick, but there's also potential for him to get injury, because he has struggled with that in recent years. And while I think the fact that he struggled at Sutton was largely a formational and systematic issue, I do think that has lost him a bit of momentum as well. So it's not like he's someone that's signing hot, if you like, which ideally you might have wanted to replace somebody like Rob Apter. So hopefully you can dip into the loan market and bring in some extra quality out wide, which I think would help a lot. Tom, what are your thoughts on Tranmere? You've got them 5th, so presumably you're backing them to replace Apter's star quality.
Yeah, I mean, Apter is one that I'm actually quite happy with. Not happy he's gone, but happy with how it turned out, because when I first saw him play for Scunthorpe, it was like, this lad he's got that, you know, a player can win a game like kind of on their own, that sort of quality to him. And he did it a few times at Scunthorpe. Even though they were terrible that season, like he was in this short spell there, he was like grabbing games and taking hold of them. And yes, Tranmere maybe don't have that player now, but what I did like about what Ben said was they're going to be the fittest team in the league, and that's why I was nodding so much when he said that, because I think they will be. Yeah, they physically they are so strong. Not just like having big strong players, which they do. They've got big strong players who also will run a lot, hard workers. And I think that they're going to overwhelm teams with that level of physicality and athleticism, I guess. And the reason I've had them there is I think I've probably placed more importance on that this season. And what I also have placed importance, and I think they've got a little bit more quality than some of the other teams who are also physically strong. And I also placed importance on winning and winning mentality. And I think they've got a manager who's obviously a proven winner. and I know a lot of teams have this season, but they've got a manager's proven winner, and they've got a couple in the group as well who are very good characters, and I just think it's a very nice mix. And I look at them as a team who, if I was a footballer, I would not want to come up against them, because you know that you're going to be in for a very tough afternoon. I think even their forwards, who Josh Davison, who they signed, is not necessarily going to get the most goals, but I think he brings a lot to their team, where I think like he actually is quite a good signing for them on another level, in terms of maybe he's not going to get 20 goals, but he brings a lot else to the team. So there's a lot of pieces about them that I like, and when put together, I think maybe and Zach Bradshaw will probably tip me over the edge to put them into that top 7.
Well, there you go. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. I often feel like we sit here making very logical predictions, and then the actual season starts, and all hell breaks loose, and it's complete chaos, and you're questioning every decision you ever make, not just in football predictions, but in life. That's how it tends to work, doesn't it? But it's always fun to try and have a stab, and it's been great. Some fantastic content there on League Two. You've got to check out Tom Williams' content on Patreon. Check out Matt Boosey's Gills In The Blood TV as well. You can get following Ben at BenDJ91 on Twitter for Tranmere Rovers Insight as well. And we'll see you again for another League Two podcast very soon.